Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third session of the International Conference, Future Theater, New Language, Tool in Theater. We often say that the theater industry is the last labor-intensive industry of the century. People often say that the actors, the performers, are the last line of resistance as everything turns intangible. As we could see, every technological evolution brings with it new aesthetics, changing the relationship between the performance and the audience, and changing the positions and the perspectives in which narratives are written. As internet and media technology rise, the ecosystem has changed the way we disseminate and share stories and information. It also echoes with our different ways of responding and making sense of the world. Theater, which is the oldest art form in the world, is adapting and echoing to these new changes in its own way. In this session, we have invited Huangyi Studio, who is the director of the National Drama Center of Lyon. And we have also invited Huangyi, founder and artistic director of Huangyi Studio, Suwen, founder of eLab. They will be joining us in the panel discussion. There will also be 10 minutes toward the end of this program when we will be opening up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise them during the Q&A. Now we would like to welcome the director of the National Drama Center of Lyon. Can you hear us? Good morning. I could hear you very clearly. Can you hear us?
Très bien. J'espère que vous allez bien. Je vous remercie pour cette
I would like to thank the moderator for her warm introduction. I'm pleased to be here today to share with you my insights, my answers to some of the questions that many of you might have in your mind. And I am keeping my fingers crossed that the connection between us will be smooth so that this video conference could go smoothly. I would like to, first of all, introduce the National Drama Center of Lyon, the Theater Nouveau generation. This theater is a national theater center. As a national institute, it is a resource center for artists. The National Drama Center of Lyon is given a very important task, which is to accompany artists to help them with the maturation of their projects. There are 38 drama centers in France, which are all run by artists, and each place has a particular project linked to the artistic work of its director. And for the Theater Nouveau generation at the National Drama Center of Lyon, we focus on children and working with young artists. I would like to emphasize that the characteristic of the center is that, particularly from a national perspective, is to encourage hybrid forms at the crossroads of different disciplines. Our goal is to offer support through the theater. With the name Theater Nouveau Generation, we want to make these voices heard. New generations of artists, new generations of forms of experience, and new generations of audiences. So it is a three-way or triple emphasis. What I'm going to do now is that I will now show you a video to show you what we are doing at the Theater Nouveau Generation. And in order not to lengthen the time of my presentation, I will silence the sound from the film so that I can continue talking while I show you the video. At our theater, we employ immersive perspective and we have been doing this for over 10 years. For us, our emphasis is that we want to lead audience to imagine tomorrow. And then we ask questions similar to those that would be raised by science fictions. The projects we help to support here include many different disciplines: puppets, object theater, movement, and plastic arts, video games, and virtual image, artificial intelligence, digital creation, to name others. So what we're doing is that we're offering new, novel experiences while we experiment with different forms and disciplines. Through this process, we hope to become the theater of our time in a contemporary way that we can be viewed and revered as the theater of today. A theater that has been transformed in its practice and forms, that lives with its time and integrates emerging cultures. The theater of the 21st century will have to be innovative. It will have to speak to citizens of all generations to make them live new experiences while asking questions about the world in which we wish to live. So, for the present and for the future of the performing arts, these developments, these works are to ensure that young people can recognize themselves in this space. At the heart of what we do are productions. We have traditional theater performances, installations, such as this one we're showing you in the film, which is called LIR, Live in Room. It is a hologram projection that's been placed in a room, and then you pick up a book and then scan the QR code on the book. And then you will be able to discover the appearance of a ghost, holographic actor who helps the audience discover the content of the book. We're also using virtual and augmented reality to present the theatrical content. So as we consider what we're showing on the stage, the scenographic design, we often work with partners. For example, Nicolas Boudier, who is the director and the designer of the scenographic experiments at our center. Of course, we're producing shows in partnerships in terms of art, mixed media, art installation, performing arts, just to name a few. Here I'm showing you work which is called Artifact. It is a theater performance without any actors. It is being presented by AI in combination with softwares and this robotic arm. And it also incorporates a 3D printer to create a stage theatrical performance where there is no presence of actors or performances. It is a performance as much as it is an exhibition. It seeks to raise questions in many regards. For us, the performance is to develop new forms of artistic expression, is to provide novel experiences that had never been made before. We seek to create the work that would establish a new form of relationship between the performers or the performance and the audience. So we're focusing on the virtual reality being blended with the physical reality. Here we are using holographic images to present virtual actors and performers. This is, and then there is this two projects that we're working on. These are results of our innovative design. One of them is an immersive circular theater with a mobile tier that will rotate like a merry-go-round around a 360-degree holographic stage. The inspiration of this project is that we not only wanted it to be an immersive theater, it is also based on a mixture of physical and virtual reality. It is inspired by the principle of Pepper's Ghost and the design of Proxenoscope. And it's based on an original concept of virtual images in three dimensions based on a 360 degrees projection. It combines real projection on a transparent retro-reflective surface. And the second project lays the foundation for a show that will mix virtual and real presences in real time. The actors will live in two separate worlds, and the show will be performed simultaneously by two teams in two different locations. But the characters will be reunited in the narration by a live broadcast device, either by a mixed reality glasses device or by a semi-holographic projection principle that will allow the spectators to see the live and the virtual mixed right in front of their eyes. I wonder whether my introduction has given you a clear overview of my background and my professional training. New technologies impact our societal environment, but how will they influence the evolution of the performing arts? Technologies are omnipresent in our daily life. They also affect theater and its development. So how will this omnipresence of technology influence the evolution of the dramaturgy of the performing arts? To begin with, I would like to say that, in my opinion, we can distinguish two very opposite or contrary versions of the use of technology in the field of the performing arts in order to examine the use of new technologies in performing arts.
The first is to consider technology or digital as a broadcasting system, as an opportunity to stream live stage experiences or immersive theatrical experiences. So through this kind of technology, the performances could be experienced at home without going out. So the idea is to access the content without moving outside the home. So this is the first category. The second category is which that focuses more on the integration of technologies within living art forms. This is a unique kind of form because it takes the presence of the individual within a scenographic device, so that it increases the perception and sensory effects on the spectator. Because this kind of spectator experience cannot be replaced. And this type of experience usually convenes a small group of spectators simultaneously. However, we hope to extend this sort of experience. So I'd like to talk about this kind of business model for immersive theaters. And first of all, we have to start from the observation that cultural practices have changed in the 21st century. And cultural practices have become more diverse. So in this environment, cultural content still continues to exist. I'm sorry, I only have 2 minutes remaining, so I need to speed up. For example, in museums, we're seeing the use of new technology integrated so that exhibitions incorporate new technologies. So when visitors go to museums, it's not just that they appreciate the artworks or the exhibited pieces. To the viewers or the spectators, going to museums has become another kind of experience in and of itself. Therefore, new technologies have changed the ecosystem of these cultural venues. At the same time, it has shifted the way that spectators or visitors see this kind of experience. Other than that, we need to pay attention to the cultural industry and focus on studios that work on VR, because there are more and more studios that are trying to generate a kind of VR experience. So through working on, or after we see work done on these content, we need to also create a market for it. And for on-site performances, we also need to leverage technology such as VR that will be a more holistic view of looking at theater. And we see that individual cultural practice has changed. Therefore, we need to create content with more added value. And when it comes to theatrical content, we need to pursue quality. At the same time, we need to be able to realize some of the intentions behind the works. And theater and drama is not limited to what's entertaining. Theater is not out there only to entertain, and the question lies in for these immersive experiences. How do we have the audience involved while at the same time we provide interaction or interactive installations? We cannot just stop there. It cannot be just superficial. And lastly, I'd like to say that in France today, in the government sector, there are still some reservations. For younger audience or spectators, we need to develop new tools and languages, and also to think about the aspirations of art if we want to reach this group of people. So using new technology, we should see it as a new beginning to think about new types of theatrical art to appeal to audiences of different ages and groups. And we have seen tremendous changes take place in the past. There are theater pieces or drama that's catered to the younger generation today. And in terms of developing theatrical work, we would like to do it for the younger generation. So we need to begin dreaming about the future today. And we need to map out a blueprint for the future about what kind of a vision we would like to see in the future. And new technologies can help us present or draft a new dimension in the society. And at the same time, it has us thinking about what kind of influence it may have on us. We don't need to be intimidated by the new technology. What's more important is that the way that human beings make use of these new technologies to come up with new and creative projects. I think I will stop here, even though I haven't covered the third part of my presentation, but we aren't running out of time. And I feel like the issues that Taiwan faces are similar to those in France. And that is, how do you develop a kind of nurturing and supporting environment that fosters creativity and immersive content? So in cultural venues, we need to think about research and development. That is extremely important to me. I think I will stop here. Thank you. Thank you, Joris. We will have a panel with two outstanding panelists who are highly experienced performers using digital technology. So they will also be sharing with us their experience as we are setting up the stage. I'd like to say that actually Joris a couple of years ago visited Taiwan, and last year he also had a workshop on immersive experiences. And even though he cannot be here today, he is able to connect to us virtually. So it also showcases how theaters are facing new challenges this day and age. And with that, I'd like to welcome the two panelists for this session. Here sitting in the middle is Su Wenqi, founder of eLab, and to my right is Huangyi. Before we go into the questions, can I have you both talk about what you've been doing, what you've been working on? Hi, my name is Su Wenqi. I am the founder of eLab. We go back to more than 10 years, and in the beginning it was a group of performers and also new media artists working together. And for our team, we have artists that work with different medium. And they have discovered that in performance arts, through the use of technology and new media and using new ideas and concepts, we can apply all of those into performance art. And we thought about how we could inject creativity into performance. Huangyi Studio was established in 2010. It was only myself back at the time. And by the end of 2014 and beginning of 2015, we became a full-time professional performance group. And we are the second dance troupe that is full-time and professional after the Cloudgate dance troupe. And we're trying to find a new way to balance performance art and also new technologies. Through technologies and the arts, we hope to become more accessible to the people, and we hope to operate as a social enterprise. So our members are not usually just artists. They also work on research and development. And we hope to develop new kinds of medium. For example, oral images, so that we can make art more accessible and pragmatic. Thank you. Before this panel began, we were chatting amongst ourselves, and we talked about how when we talk about virtual reality today, some people said that it is a theater master from France that actually promoted the idea of VR. And I think that is quite interesting because usually we don't see the theater as a place to experiment digital technologies. A lot of people still adopt this kind of old school idea when it comes to looking at theater. They think of it as the only kind of physical performance. However, theater deals with the real and the virtual. So in the contemporary society, when we think about what reality is and what virtual is and experience it in a different way, I would say that the role of theaters becomes even more interesting. So my next question is for all three of you, for Huangyi and also our two panelists. When we're inside the theater, sometimes we are adopters of new technologies. For example, there may be a new technology available when it becomes more popularized and when it becomes more affordable. Those of us in theater or artists start to adopt this kind of technology. But as was said, theaters are now trying to come up with their own R&D center, or as Huangyi said, you need to have the artists work on development too. So I'm quite curious to know, and I'd like to have all three of you share, in theaters, how do we challenge and use new technologies? How do we think across different disciplines, not just aesthetically, but also technologically? Do you have any experiences that you could share with us about? Huangyi, could you begin? First of all, thank you for the introduction. I really hope to visit Taiwan again. And of course, we could connect virtually. However, I feel like it cannot replace face-to-face interaction and exchange. And in regards to what you said, and also in response to your question, when it comes to virtual reality and the challenges that it poses and how it's related to the theater, VR has always been generating new challenges between the theater and the audience. In the beginning, we felt like in the earlier days, when we talked about VR, the concept or the idea for art theorists was that theater was a kind of virtual reality. It was in contrast with what's real. So some ideas go back a long time. And today, when we talk about technology, technology is omnipresent in our lives today, and we see it all around us. However, the existence of technology does not mean that it needs to be applied or we know how to apply it. And as the two panelists said, art offers a kind of space for technology to be applied. And it creates a new experience for spectators. And we see technology in a different light that way. And by incorporating technology, art surprises people and provides new types of experience. And in turn, they see technology differently. As you said, when we think about how technology is used in the arts, there is that idea of R&D involved. And the audience, they also need to understand how technology is a part of our lives. This is a kind of communication. At the same time, it also reminds artists not to be too obsessed about getting to know the technology per se. And there needs to be pioneers that lead the way in research and development so that artists can focus on the pieces of theater and arts. When it comes to research,
what we're doing, especially in terms of writing, really focuses on how to write about, how to write about technology and digital in our theatrical performances. I wonder this answered your question. Thank you. Now, we would like to invite the two panelists, to talk about your experience with technology. I am a dancer, so I look at the physical presence of a performer. So this is my subjectivity. This is who I am and where I am. So when I got into new media art, the first impact I was faced with is the projection of my own image and how the image can be replicated, reproduced, and disseminated. So something is being lost in such a process, and such a loss or the death of the physical body had prompted me to reconsider what high tech really means for us. Sometimes we have unrealistic or overly romantic notions when it comes to the use of technology. When we talk about virtual theater or theater of the future, many comments are fairly optimistic and positive. However, we have to really examine the way that people communicate with one another. What is the trade-off? What is being gained and what is being lost in the process? So we should not have overly romantic notions about the use of technology. It is not a cure-all. For us, in our daily life, technologies are more or less affecting the way in which we evaluate things. For example, when we use our computer, we can open up many different windows. And the way that we work is designed or enabled by the capabilities of the programs embedded in this computer. Over the years, we have discovered that audience is having shorter and shorter attention span. In the past, people could sit in the theater for hours, but not today. The diminishing attention span is due to the invention and the viewing habits associated with a tablet, computer, or smartphone. So this provides an entry into more discussion. Yohi's talked about research and development of R&D, and Huangyi also mentioned it. So when we are dealing with the R&D of technology, there are different phases. In the beginning, in new media art, people look at the communication or connection between humans, as well as the mechanism by which that the world is being changed with the advent of the technologies. For example, the tragic event of 9/11 and how that video, the actual taping of the event of the collision, is being played again and again, and thus affected the way that we view the actual event. Sometimes we do not know whether we're in the virtual reality, or are we in a dream, or are we really being present in the physical world. In 2016, I had an unusual experience. I went to the Nuclear Science R&D Institute in Europe. I was faced with scientists who study quantum physics, who studied astrology. So therefore, we are faced with these cutting-edge technologies. However, this also got me to think that the technologies that we use are highly commercialized. However, when people are thinking at such a high level, the quantum physics, the people studying nuclear science, they have gone beyond the pure application of science and technologies themselves. They're talking about more philosophical aspects of the science and technologies, AR, VR, and XR, and 360 degrees immersive experience really echo with the time travels and that many of the scientists keep talking about. Traveling through time, going from the past to the contemporary present time. People are always in search or in the pursuit of eternity, eternal life. So this translates into the people's obsession with database, people's need for virtual theater of the future, people's need to transcend beyond just having that one performance on stage, how to give eternal life to the performance so that it would exist on the hard drive, so people could click and play and view and experience the performance at any given time or space. So this really changes the definition of the performance, the artists and the producers, and as well as the audience. The creative director of Google's Creative Lab in Sydney said in the morning that sometimes we don't really need the most cutting edge technologies. Rather, we need to focus on the blending of culture and technology. For example, I'm working with the MPAC, the Performing Arts and Technology Research Institute in the U.S. They are focusing on really interesting topics. When technologies are mature, artists can intervene, could use these technologies as intervention tools to come up with better creative artistic expressions. So many large corporations, tech companies are also considering using artist intervention as a way to broaden their own horizons. And so this gives us that space, that the starting point for us to evolve and grow with technologies. For this is an exciting and very interesting turning point for artists like me. Thank you. The new artistic expressions and forms are always evolving. For any time period, there is always the emergence of new forms of art. For France, as a nation, it plays a very leading role in the world of experimental art. Horace also said that the French theater community has been at the forefront of pioneering new way of presenting theatrical performances. I think today's discussion offers a great opportunity for us to bounce ideas of one another. In terms of research and development, I could talk about it from my personal experience. In the beginning, I was using projection devices. That was only after the devices have become affordable for theaters to use. At the later stage of my own journey, after my techniques or my experiences have increased, I contacted the KUKA company to talk about possible partnerships. I also worked with companies with mature technologies to use their projects, their products in ways that were unimaginable before. So the relationship between art and technology started to change. When I worked with KUKA, I discovered a product defects or bugs, technological glitches that the engineers within KUKA company did not even notice. So our interaction and cooperation with the company really deepened as a result. The company sent engineers to go with me on my dance tours so that they could tweak and make adjustments to the robotic arms whenever necessary. So we created this really close relationship. Now, when they develop new robotic arms, they would even ask me for my opinion. They would say that we have just recently developed the cobot, this new model of robotic arm. Would you like to use it in your new performance? And for the Industrial Technology Research Institute in Taiwan, I also worked with it, and I discovered that it is developing a lot of interesting and innovative prototypes. So I got into contact with, for example, the lab, in the lab of intelligent manufacturing. They are developing new materials, raw materials, and then they would discuss with me pliable materials and different stiff materials, different types of, for example, high temperature resistant materials. And also they have come up with 3D printed mixed materials, different types of metals that I could work with and incorporate into my performance. So in that relationship, I then become a form of intervention. I would be able to provide them with feedback so that would inform their subsequent R&D process. So this is how I have interacted with my partners. In visual recognition, I also worked with this company, and the company invented computers that are able to recognize and detect the moments when two dancers are about to collide with one another, and that's when the lighting would change. In the past, the lighting is controlled manually. However, we are working on using AI to monitor the performance that is currently going on the stage, and the AI would then identify the perfect timing for changing the lighting. And this then would be applied to, for example, the subway system to detect abnormality on the rails of the trains to prevent accidents from happening. So, as you know, that the MRT company, the Taipei Metro Subway Company, are also using algorithms in combination with its monitoring system to detect abnormality of their tracks. So that was a very interesting collaboration project. And this other project that I worked on has to do with video photography. The quality how to enhance the quality of video photography. Sometimes when we look at the recording of our own performance, sometimes when you want to make video recording of yourself, you have to hire a photographer to do the recording. However, we are now working with companies to develop robots that will follow the movements on the stage and record accordingly. We are at the stage where we are comparing robots generated video feeds and then real person generated. We have hired professional videographers. We had worked on professional movie projects. We're comparing the two, a human photographer and a robot photographer. So in the end, we are currently at the stage that the robot photographer is doing a better job. However, the one flaw with the robot photographer is that we have to feed programs into this robot. So whenever things do not go according to plan or the performers are not following the pre-scripted movements, the robot may not be able to adapt and keep up in a real-time manner.
So we came up with new measures for human and robot to work together. And there would be robot photographer on site to carry out a perfect camera movement. However, the human photographer would use creativity to come up with delicate ways of camera movements that were unexpected and beautiful. So this is a way that we have developed for human and machine to work together. And in terms of oral images, we want to optimize and upgrade. For those that are visually impaired, they may want to see performances. And so in the past, they would have to depend on these audio guides. But the quality offered is not that ideal. So we used ways to upgrade this kind of audio description experience. The best way using technology is to use these glasses that have directive speakers. So using catered ways, the voice or the sounds could be transmitted to provide a 3D experience with high sound quality. And also those that are visually impaired, they need to hear in both of their ears to be able to know which objects are moving in what directions. So that really boosted the performance quality for the visually impaired. So in the beginning, we used popularized technologies. We talked about working with eTree and also other institutions to create new solutions. And also in terms of audio descriptions, we are leveraging older technology, but to also upgrade it. And there is a new project for us that's called Model for the Soul. That's something that we've been working on for quite a long time. And what we're doing is to capture important data from our family members or friends. So for example, we would capture the voices or the images of our family members and friends. And after the data is captured, we also want to capture their images. So I adopted technologies from eTree using high-resolution 3D scanning. We were able to capture their pores, also traces on their skin, and then to print that out so that we could capture the appearance or the image of our loved ones. And so from the perspective of an artist, we have developed new ways of applications. So when we talked about using technology that is already in place, and also we talked about new solutions in collaboration to upgrading existing technology, and then we also talked about inventing new possibilities, adopting technology. So This is what R&D is about, and I think that is something I'd like to share with you, and perhaps you could also adopt. Thank you for that. Let's open up the floor for questions. So for those of you here, do you have any questions that you'd like to raise? If you need some time to think about your questions, we have many questions on Slido as well. All right, let's begin with digital technology. Do we create content differently? Do you take new technologies into consideration when coming up with new content? Or is technology just an aid? So maybe Jorgis, you could take this question first. Yes, I'll begin. I feel like there is no fixed set of rules. In art creation, we could be enabled by new technology and come up with new artwork. Or it could be the other way around. To create art, we try to find technologies that may be needed. But I have to emphasize, don't limit yourself to certain ways of thinking. Don't think I need to adopt certain kind of technology, but to think more in terms of research and development. So in art creation, open up the possibilities, and there could be new inspiration that come in and new ideas generated. And in the second stage, we need to come up with a prototype for the artwork. And if we were to enable art to be created, we need to be able to see whether it has enough elements of drama, of theater, and whether it is pragmatic in terms of technology, whether it can be really executed and produced. So in the beginning stage, I would say the research and the development work is highly important, especially when we see the market flooded by artwork, by content. We are in an era of mass production of content. So we need to be able to create a novel way of, or novel content that leads the times. And we need to come back to research and development. In the past, artists worked intuitively without getting to know how they could use technology that is pragmatic. I'd also like to ask the two panelists to take that question. Whether technology or art comes first, which one takes precedent? That's something we've been talking about in many different forums. But based on my personal experience and also based on my observations for a lot of film directors, technology sometimes cannot catch up with the imagination of human beings, and that is a fact. So any idea that we have, our imagination is bounded by how things can be executed. So how do we take a simple idea? For example, if we wanted to capture all the data of our important family members, how do we do that? There's that difficulty there. Or if we want to capture someone dancing digitally, that would be quite hard to do, and it boils down to whether it can be realized through technology. So when we work with technology, or when we think about sci-fi films, sometimes a lot of virtual elements are involved, and a lot of the times it's because the technology cannot keep up in real performance. So we use film, or we use novels as medium to express these ideas. We try to imagine what extraterrestrial creatures look like. We imagine what Superman looks like on film. But actually, when I first came into contact with theater, I realized that we could make real art that exists, or people or objects or things that exist. However, we capture that using the theater as a medium. And I feel like that's truly beautiful. So what we're trying to do is to combine, or to strike a new balance between art and also theater. For example, for one of our projects, it's about how robots are able to dance with human performers. So in a way, it meets the standards of the theater because it's something that really takes place instead of being digital. It's not human beings pretending to work or to play or to use robots as puppets, but really human performers dancing with robots. And then I started thinking about whether this is something that I'd like to pursue further. From conceptual or more virtual art, I wanted to go into more real art. I can't say that it's real art per se. It's something that truly exists on stage, that adopts technology. So that got me thinking about new commercial possibilities and new business models for these technologies and this kind of theatrical work. It can really work, and we can collaborate with partners so that we offer this kind of service or experience to the general public. And then I can be able to reach what I've wanted to do, to really have art become a part of people's lives and contribute to it. Wenqi, I think when it comes to content and technology, in striking a balance between the two, a lot of the times in art creation, what I want to do is to think about the themes I want to explore, and I use that as an anchor. And after I have clear vision about what is it that I want to explore, I start thinking about the means to be able to realize that. What are the tools that I can adopt? If you are imagining out of nothing a technological device, of course, you can build that system. However, I discover that there are so many existing tools that are in the market today that we can adopt. And also, the artists can make modifications of these tools. So I think those are good ways to strike a balance between content and also technology. And of course, we need to take into consideration the costs. What Huangyi said, I thought, was quite interesting. When you start using a tech tool, because artists have certain needs unmet, so perhaps you could find new ways of using those tools. And for artists, I would say that their role is, when we're trying to create this kind of world or this little universe that we're hoping for, when we're trying to make our imagination a reality, our needs will shape the technology itself, and there needs to be a balance that needs to be struck. And of course, when we have new needs that arise, we need to think about better ways for us to meet those needs. So I think art and technology, they happen at the same time. And we find a balance in between or along the way. And right now, in this day and age, in the face of new media and new technology, performance arts, I would say, stimulates new technologies, but also vice versa. Thank you, Wenqi. I'm sorry we are running out of time. Can we take one final question? I guess not. If you have a burning question, perhaps you can take it offline with our panelists on site. But I'd like to thank Yorhis for joining us today. And we hope to see you soon, either in France or in Taiwan. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope to see you all very soon. Greetings and best wishes. We are now going to take a group photo. We'd like to also invite Chairman of TICA, Ms. Ding, to join us for the group photograph. Ms. Ding, could you stand in the center? Yorhis, please look into the camera and smile for our group photo.